Every great empire throughout history had its signature tool of persuasion. For the British, it was a navy that ruled the waves with an iron fist, projecting authority across entire continents. For the Mongols, it was the terrifying speed of their cavalry, a storm of hooves and arrows that swept across Asia. But for the United States, the ultimate instrument of power is not something you can see or touch. It is the US dollar. While bombs and battleships make for a good show, the dollar works in absolute silence, an invisible force capable of steering nations, dictating trade, and shaping global politics on a scale no army has ever achieved. The story of this financial titan begins with surprising humility. The Coinage Act of 1792 officially established the US dollar for a nation that was, frankly, still wet behind the ears. Its value was initially pegged to both silver and gold, a dual backing that gave it a rare stability in a world flooded with flimsy paper money issued on a government's whim. For many decades, the dollar was a purely domestic affair, content to facilitate trade within American borders. But even then, deep in the soil of this new republic, the seeds of its future global conquest were being planted, waiting for the right moment to sprout. The dollar's leap from a national currency to a global superpower was not planned in a congressional chamber. It was forged in the fires of global catastrophe. After the Second World War, Europe and Asia were little more than smoldering ruins. Economies were shattered, governments were in chaos, and entire infrastructures had been wiped off the map. In this landscape of devastation, the United States stood almost completely untouched, its industries humming and its banks secure. It was the undisputed economic giant left standing on the world stage. In 1944, with the war's end in sight, representatives from 44 allied nations convened in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to sketch out a new economic world order. It was here, in a quiet mountain resort, that the US dollar was officially crowned king. The agreement was simple. Other countries would peg their currencies to the dollar, and the dollar, in turn, would be pegged to gold at a fixed rate of $35 an ounce. For the very first time, a single national currency became the bedrock of global finance, handing one nation a degree of economic power that was simply unprecedented. Becoming the world's reserve currency meant that central banks everywhere had to stockpile massive amounts of dollars just to function. This created a brilliant, self-perpetuating cycle. The more the world needed dollars for trade and stability, the more valuable and influential the dollar became. It was the foundation of a new kind of empire, one built not on conquered lands or colonial subjects, but on global dependency, liquidity, and most importantly, trust. Unlike a cannon or a castle, you cannot destroy the dollar's power with a physical attack. Its strength lies in its universal acceptance. Nowhere is the dollar's chokehold more obvious than in global trade. Nearly every essential commodity you can think of, oil, wheat, gold, and even industrial metals like copper, is priced and sold in US dollars. This means that for any country hoping to buy or sell on the international market, holding dollars is not optional. This unending global demand gives the United States an incredible ability to influence financial markets, manage interest rates, and direct the flow of commerce with the precision of a surgeon. But this power goes far beyond simply making trade easier. It is a formidable tool of geopolitical leverage. By controlling access to the global dollar-based financial system, the United States can impose crippling sanctions, freeze assets, and choke off international trade to influence the behavior of other nations, all without firing a single missile. Think about countries like Iran or North Korea. By being effectively unfriended from the dollar system, their ability to import goods, sell their resources, and engage in global finance is brought to a screeching halt. This is financial warfare, conducted with the stroke of a pen. It is silent, invisible, and devastatingly effective. No army is needed, no blockade is required. The dollar itself becomes the enforcer. In our deeply interconnected world, Being economically exiled can be just as punishing as a conventional military conflict. It is a stark reminder that the most powerful weapons are not always the ones that go boom. History is filled with examples of this weapon being deployed. After Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990, U.S.-led sanctions froze Iraqi assets and blocked its oil sales, gutting its economy. When sanctions were tightened on Iran between 2018 and 2020, its capacity to trade on the world stage was severely crippled. More recently, after Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, cutting off some of its access to the dollar system sent shockwaves through its economy, proving yet again that control over the world's currency can achieve strategic goals far more efficiently than brute force. The mechanics supporting this dominance are both simple and incredibly deep. Roughly 60% of all global foreign exchange reserves are held in dollars, creating a permanent, built-in demand. Nations and major corporations around the world borrow in dollars, weaving a web of systemic dependency. Crucially, the world's most important commodities are priced in dollars, forcing everyone to keep a healthy stash. In essence, the global economy runs on a dollar-based operating system, and whoever controls that system holds the keys to trade, debt, and economic survival. This financial empire is further reinforced by the architecture of global finance. Through its immense influence in institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, the United States can promote policies that align with its own strategic interests. These organizations act as the gatekeepers of global capital. By controlling access to their networks and funds, the U.S. can guide economic reforms, shape domestic policies, and essentially set the rules of the game for other nations. The dollar is not just money, it is a finely tuned instrument of geopolitical authority. However, the dollar's reign is not without its challengers. Nations like China and Russia are actively working to chip away at their dependency, exploring alternative payment systems and striking trade deals in their own local currencies. The rise of cryptocurrencies and the development of central bank digital currencies also pose a theoretical threat to the old guard. Yet, despite these efforts, the dollar remains profoundly embedded in the machinery of global finance. It is the default language of money, making it remarkably resilient to both political and technological challenges. Ultimately, the dollar's immense power is built on a very human foundation: trust. Its influence relies not on military backing, but on the collective confidence of the world that it will remain stable and hold its value. This belief is supported by the perceived strength of America's institutions and the transparency of its financial systems. Unlike a physical weapon whose power is measured in destructive force, the dollar's potency is a matter of perception. If that confidence were to ever truly shatter, its power would evaporate, sending shockwaves through every market on Earth. The long history of the dollar offers a profound lesson. Money is never just money. It is a vehicle for influence, a tool of diplomacy, and a mechanism of control. By commanding the world's most critical currency, the United States can enforce its will, incentivize cooperation, and project its power across the globe without ever mobilizing a single soldier. The ability to do so quietly, through a system of trust rather than brute force, makes the dollar one of the most sophisticated and powerful weapons ever conceived. This supremacy also reveals the profound fragility of our global system. While a single dominant currency offers stability and efficiency, it also concentrates an enormous amount of risk. Any significant mismanagement of the dollar, erosion of trust, or major political turmoil in the United States could spark a global economic firestorm. It is a delicate dance between dominance and vulnerability, and a heavy responsibility for the nation that sits at the center of it all. For every person, from investors to ordinary citizens, understanding this hidden power is crucial. The story of the dollar shows that economic forces, more so than military might, are what truly shape our modern world. By examining its rise, its use as a geopolitical weapon, and the web of dependency it has spun, we gain a clearer picture of the invisible currents that guide international relations, global trade, and the great game of power. Ultimately, the US dollar is so much more than currency. It is a weapon that can cripple economies, a tool that can shape foreign policy, and the very foundation of modern global power. It proves that in the 21st century, finance can exert more influence than entire armies. Gaining a deep understanding of this silent power is the key to navigating the complex worlds of both economics and geopolitics. History has a simple lesson for us. Those who control the currency control the world. In our time, that lesson has never been more true. If you want to understand the secret levers of power and the real story of how money has shaped our world, then you are in the right place. Subscribe for more deep dives into the forces that define our past, present, and future. Because history does not just repeat itself, it provides the blueprint for what is to come.